We never know where life will lead us or what may hinder us along the way. But while every day can feel like one big question mark, it doesn't have to. With the right insights, strategies, and solutions from Western and Southern Financial Group, together we can look ahead to leave the unknown behind.
There's no other way we can really start this, Mike. How did the date with the 20-year-old soccer player go?
Okay, not 20 years old again, to be clear.
22.
It went good. Honestly, it was probably the best first date I've ever been on. But
wow,
not a high bar, as we know after my previous date stories. So, yeah, it was great. I mean, things went well.
I think for the podcast listeners, we have to play this clip because you're 30. She's 22.
22.
I think we need to play that clip, Quinn, from Dazed and Confused, Matthew McConaughey, the high school girls clip.
We definitely don't have to.
If you were going to put it in now.
That's what I love about these high school girls, man. I get older, they stay the same age.
Yes, they do.
Yes, they do.
Thank you, Quinn. Really appreciate that. I have some stories to rip. My mom is officially out of Cincinnati. She's flying back to California. She's from the Fresno area. But I didn't tell these stories on the Wednesday pod because you had the first date story. I have these. I took her out, pictures of margaritas at a local restaurant here in Cincinnati, and got her finally open up. And to preface this is the first time my mom and I have hung out for more than like a meal as adults since I was like 16. Like it's been a long time since I talked to her, like 10 plus years. So I've never really gotten any of the background or like the timeline. Like the only car thieving story I've got from her is the one I was there where she stole a U-Haul. Like that's the only one I've got. So she told me some other stories about stealing cars and all this crazy stuff and said a bunch of crazy stuff as well, like random drug stories anyway. But she told me the playbook, the thieving Grand Theft Auto playbook.
Oh, nice.
And she said, step one. You never bring the stolen car home, which I felt like is obvious, but it's nice to have a step one. You never bring it home.
You park it outside PFF is the car we saw this morning.
Yes. Step two, if anything on the car breaks down, flat tire, it starts to smoke, whatever, you have to ditch it. It's not worth it. It's not worth calling AAA or getting a tow truck or trying to salvage it. It doesn't matter if it's like the nicest car in the world. Step three, gloves if you can, but Vaseline is cheaper. You can get Vaseline on your hands and wipe down the steering wheel and it's good to go. And it helps you like grease some of the things in there or something. I don't know. That was like the first 3 steps. She had a handful of other rules. Never steal
How
with
is
a buddy.
Vaseline cheaper than just one pair of
I have no idea. But then I was like, give me another like wild one. You know, give me, the U-Haul one was crazy, but give me another wild one. Apparently she was coming out of Walmart. And she does this to this day. We were walking around Cincinnati and she'll go into a parking lot. She's like, I know which car I'd steal in this lot. It's like, oh my God, dude, you're jonesing, man. Ease up, kid. Ease up. But she goes into the parking lot and she's like, there was a 67 Camaro drop top. She like rattles it off like draft prospect traits. Like just like crankshaft. I don't know shit about cars, but she's like, this thing was cherry.
Red Shirt Junior.
She jumps in. She's able to jump into it and steal it and run it very quickly. And she's bolting out of there. But the cops, it was a Bay car. Cops were like, had it there for her or for someone to steal. She was already on Manteca's most wanted list at this time, still running it. She comes in, cops are right there. She's like, damn it, Bay car. Drives and dodges them by going like around the block and then back into that same parking lot, drives behind the Walmart, sneaks in through the back employee entrance, calls her friend. His name's Mike. I don't know him. Calls her friend Mike.
Maybe it's me.
Could have been Quinn. He comes to pick her up, and as she's driving out, she's like, it's got a flat tire. Because she was thinking about getting back in it, you know, like maybe trying to run it back. So then she goes out, Vaseline's the steering wheel, grabs any stuff that she had in there and makes it move. But she's telling me all these stories over a pitcher of margaritas, and I'm just cracking up laughing. Everyone's looking at us crazy. And she ends up saying, she's like, and I never got caught either. I was like, didn't you go to prison? She's like, yeah, 3 times. I was like, what the fuck are you talking about? She's like, I don't know, man. It was crazy, man.
She just told your story about a vape car.
I know. I don't know what's going on.
Is your mom Nicolas Cage from Gone in 60 Seconds?
Nicolas Cage. She
Bait
might
Car.
be Nicolas
Did you ever
Cage.
watch the show Bait Car?
Yeah, I have.
That's all-time hangover show watching. Like that in Bar Rescue on a Sunday.
Yeah, that's true.
Either one of those is just perfect way to pass the day.
Either way, I have all that it takes now to steal a car if I ever have to.
Nice.
Or my mom could steal it for me. Who knows? But she's now out of Cincinnati.
Now we don't have to rent a car in Mobile next year.
Dude, we were also talking, the last thing about my mom, because she said this, it was fucking hilarious. We were talking about like gateway drugs. And I was like, you start smoking cigarettes. And I was like, a gateway drug to eating worse food and stuff like that. And she's like, yeah, gateway drugs like crank. And I was like, what are you talking about? Crank is not, I don't even know what crank is. I think crank is where you go to die. I don't know if that's the move, but man, she was funny. It was cool to see her. That's for sure. Mailbag, baby. Let's get right into this mailbag. Should be a fun time here. Remember, if you want to get your questions answered on the mailbag, it's not a YouTube comment. It's not an IG DM. It's not a LinkedIn DM. Go to Apple Podcasts, leave a 5-star review, and drop your question in there. That's what helps the podcast most. It's not because we don't like the IG DMs. I love the IG DMs. But if you want to help support the podcast, we need them in Apple Podcasts to help with the ratings and those things. All right. This is from Mick Saquon. I have David Montgomery and Chase Claypool and the 1.11 and the 3.11. I think those are picks for my upcoming rookie draft. I think this is Dynasty. I really would like to trade these players to get into the first 4 picks so I can secure Jamar Chase. I desperately need a wide receiver 2 to help get my team into the championship. Do you all think I should continue pursuing this trade? If not, which rookie prospect would have the best value at 1.11? Also, which rookie would be the best dart throw at 3.11?
We should really have clarified at some point. I don't know shit about fantasy.
I don't know either. I don't want to tell this guy the wrong news.
I don't want to act like I'm above fantasy. I'm not. I enjoy playing low-key fantasy football with my friends. I am not dynasty guy. I'm not daily fantasy guy.
But I applaud those guys. Those guys who put the effort in to be diehard dynasty players. It's a fucking grind.
What I will say to answer this, because like I said, I don't know shit about the value of 1.11 and 3.11, whatever that's going to be. But I will say I think Chase Claypool is going to be the number 1 receiver in Pittsburgh. He has the most sort of universal skill set. No more Juju Smith-Schuster there. Deontay Johnson's nice, but that dude is unreliable as hell. So I think Chase Claypool is going to be the target share winner in that receiving group next season. And then the other thing is Jamar Chase, there's no security that he goes to a good situation. If he goes to Miami, he's maybe the number 2 there with Devontae Parker as the number 1. If he goes to the Eagles, he has Jalen Hurts throwing him the football and a former first rounder last year and Jalen Reagor. That's not going to be a pass-heavy offense.
What about Cincinnati?
If he goes to Cincinnati, that's your home run. That's what you're.
But I think Devy or dynasty draft before the draft.
Yeah. So that's what I'm saying. You don't necessarily know.
I don't think you want to be getting out of Chase Claypool.
Claypool's a nice situation where you know it's going to be a pass-heavy offense. He's going to get the hard target share. So I would struggle to
getting out of David Montgomery is smart.
I'd struggle to flip Claypool for the chance for Jamar Chase for the then chance that he goes to a good situation.
I do think trying to get out of David Montgomery could make sense because that offense is just not going to be good.
Yeah, I think that's a nice sell high for Montgomery if you can.
Yeah. All right, let's jump out of Mick Saquon and go to Zuzu Pedals. This is from February 3rd. We're catching up, fellas. We might do another bonus next week.
We're in the same month.
We're in the same month. Love the podcast. Keeps getting better and becoming my first listen from PFF podcast family. My question about last year's second round. There's so much analysis of round 1 and how round 1 guys performed. Who are you most excited about from last year's second round? I'd love any comments on Duggar and who might be high impact players in the second round in 2021.
I'm excited for Duggar. I thought he played really well. He just didn't have quite as big a role as a Jeremy Chin did in that defense, and I think he will year 2. And we were higher on Duggar coming out than we were Chin, so just would expect him to excel in year 2. Excited to see what he does. The names I highlighted though for this: Grant Delpit, torn Achilles, didn't see him. This will be basically his rookie year for the Browns, but they need safety help there. Laviska Shenault, getting Trevor Lawrence to throw him the rock a little bit more this year in a new offense, and just him pairing with Urban Meyer and what we know he's been able to do with playmakers over the course of his tenure as a head coach. And then Willie Gay, linebacker, another guy who saw the field in a limited role for the Chiefs. I think they're going to want him to see the field in much more full-time role in 2021. Just to see because he looked good when he was on the field, but just again, not a lot of tape for him. Those are the 3 guys I really am looking forward to.
I think it's important too to highlight some of the guys that have already performed well, and I'm excited to watch in the second round. Like Antoine Winfield Jr. had a really good rookie season. It's going to continue to play better.
He pushed his ceiling, sort of thing.
Yeah, Jalen Johnson is another guy that was drafted in the second round last year. A name you didn't mention: Michael Pittman Jr. keeping the number 11 jersey in Indy.
He's the one now.
And he should be the guy in Indy next year. I think Michael Pittman Jr. is another name. Do you have any names that could be getting drafted in the second round this year that you feel like will Jacoby values at that spot?
Oh, fuck. Put me on the spot right there.
He asked that question too. That was from Zuzu.
Did he?
And who might be high impact guys from the 2021 second round?
Oh, God damn it. I didn't
I think the tackle class makes sense. If you see like a Walker Little, Leatherwood, Cosme fall to the second round, I think those are the guys that at the top I would feel being impact guys.
Yeah, I was looking through the 2020 draft and seeing Robert Hunt was the only interior offensive lineman drafted last year in the second round. And I was just like thinking to myself, I'm like, there are going to be a lot more interior offensive linemen drafted this year in the second round.
So the offensive line.
Yeah.
I think looking at our big board too, Ardarius Washington, if he falls out of the first round, I know you're a big fan of his. He could fall out of that second or third round. Because people just don't like the size there. Jabril Cox is another name in that range that I think could be a really good player. Let's jump now to Harut Turumirian.
That can't be right.
I was doing everything I could there. That was everything I had. Love the pod. Can you guys do a more in-depth analysis on why Trevor Lawrence is such a good quarterback?
I'm so glad you asked. Yes, I may. It's the biggest thing with him compared to everyone else is the NFL-y things that you do. There's a lot more that goes into playing the quarterback position than just being accurate and having a strong arm. That's a good base. That was, Baker Mayfield had that coming out of Oklahoma. He didn't have the other small aspects that you need to play quarterback in the NFL. Like, you need to be able to navigate a tight pocket with poise. I think Daniel Jeremiah, I saw a tweet from him, his number one trait when evaluating quarterbacks is poise. Are you composed and not, panicky or like seeing ghosts, that sort of thing? That matters so much at the quarterback position, and that has been him since he was a true freshman playing against Alabama. That's like his biggest thing compared to everyone else. And then the second biggest thing that I think is different from college to the pro is just the speed you have to play with. In the NFL, if you get 3 seconds in a pocket on a normal drop back concept, that's a win for your offensive line. Your offensive line did a good job on that play. 3 seconds in college is, the vast majority of Justin Fields dropbacks on like normal concepts, we're taking more than 3 seconds. That's just, you're having to play a different game once you get to the NFL in terms of the speed. Trevor Lawrence already plays at that speed in college. Those to me are the two biggest things that are kind of, why do you feel so good about Trevor Lawrence? That's why.
And Steven Ruiz, who's a good follow on Twitter, was recently dropping some highlights of Trevor Lawrence and some of the crazy throws he's made. I think people are forgetting, because everyone's talking about Trey Lance's arm talent, Zach Wilson coming up boards, all that stuff. Like, people are forgetting this might be the best off-platform thrower of the group. And it's not even his biggest strength. He played in the NFL offense. He's very accurate, but he is a very good off-platform thrower, can throw out of structure, has all the arm talent you need to be really successful at the next level. I think athleticism for him gets underrated. He is legitimately fast.
He has it all. There's not like a weakness that you point to and say he has to change this at the NFL level. No, everything's kind of there to succeed right away.
I think he is the first quarterback in a long time, maybe since Andrew Luck, where you could feel comfortable saying he's a complete quarterback prospect. You can use the word complete with him and not feel like an asshole.
And I'd also throw in the fact that Clemson's offense compared to Alabama's offense this year, LSU's last year, they're not particularly innovative. They're still doing a lot of ISO routes on the outside, basically saying, hey, wide receiver, you go beat this guy. And that's a lot of what the NFL is too. You're going to have to trust your guys to win, and you're going to have to find the most favorable matchup in those ISO situations. At the end of the day in the NFL, that still is a thing that has to happen. A lot of offenses like I said, Alabama, LSU, that wasn't necessarily the case with the innovation or the innovativeness, shall we say, that they were putting against the college defenses.
All right, next one from T-Boogie9. Hey guys, the pod is awesome. My question is, outside of Jamar Chase, which receiver in this draft would have the best fit with Joe Burrow? Also, outside of offensive tackle, which position should the Bengals prioritize in upgrading this offseason? Who-day? Was this from producer Mike Quinn? Do you go by T-Boogie on the weekends?
No comment. No, it's not me.
I think just a good number one receiver.
Yeah.
Devontae Smith.
Guy that can win on the outside.
Yeah, and Devontae Smith has a big catchphrase, can win in contested situations too. You're not, it's not a completely different type of wide receiver, Devontae Smith and Jamar Chase. They have, the reason they're both coveted so highly is because they have such complete skill sets. So, yeah, I think Devontae Smith, would be the other guy I'd say fits very well with Joe Burrow if you're going to take a wide receiver. Outside of OT, where would I prioritize? I like Quinn's theory of all-in offense. Go all in on this offense, see where you can push this offense, and then try to scrounge up whatever you can with the guys you've picked in recent years defensively. If I am going to address one position defensively, I would kind of try to keep what I had already in Carl Lawson, William Jackson. I think those are very good players, and it's just good business and helps you in the long run to try to keep your own guys. I think for a morale standpoint, if you're at a franchise that is known for extending and keeping guys in-house, that's just a good team building aspect. Like, the guys want to play for teams like that.
They got that new Ring of Honor. You got to have somebody to put in.
You want to get in the Ring of Honor?
Yeah.
You
So
want
was
to be
that real?
a Cincy legend?
Was that real? And did someone Photoshop that in? I saw there's some controversy around that.
I think it was a real picture, and I think this is just speculation. Obviously, there's no way to confirm this, but I think it was real. I think somebody from the social team took a picture. Those
Didn't realize
were
it.
already in place. Didn't realize it. They took it down. They put up another picture with those shopped out.
Yeah.
So
You can kind of see into the stadium, right? If you
that's
go
what I'm saying. You could go. I mean, it might be
Up the
covered up
highway?
now, but you could go. We could walk down there in 15
Let's go make
minutes.
a play.
It's like a
That's not a bad idea, yeah.
2-for-1 draft trip to
2-for-1
Investigative
drafts
reporting.
exclusive. Yeah, I love it.
All right, this is from Go Dogs 417. Subject line: Go Dogs. Just started listening, but I love the pod so far. I wonder what this question is going to be about. I'm a huge Georgia fan, so I'm wondering where you think the big guys coming out next year will go in terms of draft order. JT Daniels, Jordan Davis, Zamir White. Also, if you could give a top 5 quarterbacks list in next year's draft. Keep up the awesome work and go Dogs.
Next question is about the Dogs, too. Let's ask the next one.
Oh, okay. So the next question is also Dogs. This is from Gurley17. Best draft podcast out there. Love all the stories and thorough player analysis leading up to draft day. As a UGA fan, what are y'all's impressions of JT Daniels? And are there any UGA players that have caught your eye for future drafts?
Yeah,
Thanks.
so the guy who's caught my eye is Dominic Blaylock, wide receiver, towards ACL last year, but as a freshman, he's got that juice.
What about the tight end?
Oh yeah, he's not. He's a true freshman.
I know, but still, I'm excited.
Yeah.
Let me look up that guy again.
George, I think so. If the order I would say they'd go in right now, or kind of just how I'd order them on board right now. Blaylock, George Pickens, the other wide receiver there, JT Daniels, Jordan Davis, the defensive tackle, their big ass nose tackle, and then probably Zamir White. And fifth of those guys, JT Daniels, I'm not sold. He's not making my top 5 list here, which I'm gonna unveil. Even though he earned 87.4 passing grade this past season, he was just so. The word I wrote down was loose watching his tape. Just kind of loose decisions down the football field. He got away with it against Mississippi State because Mississippi State's secondary was butt cheeks. But in the game against Cincinnati, not the same. You saw him just throwing balls up for grabs down the football field. And that's concerning because he wasn't seeing coverages. So obviously, this is his first action since it was 2018 when he started as true freshman at USC, and it was only a handful of games. But he's not making this top 5 list. He's kind of just still a fringe prospect in my eyes who has nice arm talent, but you got to put it together. So here's the top 5 for the 2022 NFL draft. As I see them right now, Spencer Rattler, Oklahoma. He's my guy. I don't think that one's changed. That dude's talented. Sam Howell, and he reminds me so much of Kyler Murray, just the way he throws. It's insane. And he's so good outside the pocket. All right, so I got to stop talking about it. But Sam Howell, North Carolina, Keaton Slovis, USC, Emory Jones from Florida. That guy is extremely talented. I'm not putting him like in a top 5, top 10 conversation, but he has those kind of tools. And then last, but certainly not least here, Malik Willis, the Liberty quarterback. I showed you a throw here this morning from
Dude's
him.
got a hose.
He might have the strongest arm in college football. That guy.
Stronger than our guy, Big Dave?
Oh, sorry, DJ
Uungalele?
No,
DJ Uungalele?
Strongest arm in that draft class.
Okay.
If he declares, that guy can spin it, man. So,
Dude, you showed me the throw. I know we can't post it, but it's like a 25-yard deep
far
out
hash.
from the far hash, and it is on a freaking rope.
Yeah, the thing probably doesn't go above 10 feet in the air, 25 yard out.
Just
Yeah,
insane.
far hash.
I have 2 things there. One, Zamir White, I was looking up some advanced statistics for running backs, and he ranks really high in yards per carry against loaded boxes, and very high in yards per carry when contacted at or behind the line of scrimmage. A guy that's forced a ton of missed tackles as well. I think he's a former 5-star monster recruit that everyone liked. And then the tight end, who's obviously not in next year's class, but Darnell Washington. If you don't know the name, find it. He's going to be a sophomore, true sophomore this year. Former consensus 5-star, 6'7", 265. I think there's one highlight against Cincinnati in the bowl game. I think the Sugar Bowl or whatever it was, where you're like, who is this?
It looks
Who
like
is this
someone's
monster?
dad came out in the field.
It's
Big Dave out there.
It's that's a name to watch out for. Darno, and he also wears number 0, which I think is awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're a consensus
That
5-star,
guy's-
you get what you want.
Coming as a true freshman 5-star tight end and saying, give me 0. I already love that guy.
I love that guy too. All right, this is from Banks Scaff. Hey guys, love watching the pod. I know this isn't 2021 draft class related, but who is your comp for Justin Ross, and where do you see him getting drafted?
Man, so the neck injury stuff obviously going to be scary for NFL teams. Has to be thoroughly vetted. I wasn't super high on him as a prospect. He's not in the mold of guys we traditionally like. We like separators. He was more of a contested catch guy. Watching his tape, Mike Floyd was the guy that came to mind. And that was kind of how Mike Floyd won. You just love his body control, love the physical game he plays, but just really not a guy who got open a lot. Like, I think that was Mike Floyd at Notre Dame, which funny Floyd story to also why I love this comp for Mike Floyd. My freshman year, we're playing basketball at the rec center. This was probably the spring after, and he was the same grade as me at Notre Dame. Came in the same class. There was a girl playing 5-on-5 pickup, and she like played regularly at the rec center.
Was she good?
She was all right, and he dunks on her. He's like talking trash to Mike Floyd the whole game. So she was like
Real trash or joking trash?
like real trash.
Oh wow.
She's like call him scrub and whatnot. Dunks on her and says, "Bitch, get the hell out."
No way. Do you have her number?
And she did not come. I didn't actually see her after. Like, she didn't play the rest of the school year.
No.
I swear to
Michael
God.
Floyd ended her career?
Mike Floyd really, like, she had nothing coming back from that. It was hilarious. Mike Floyd he could play basketball. That guy was really good.
This brings up something you brought up to me about the podcast, a potential segment, but having guys who are in college, listeners who are in college or recently out of college, bring up stories about prospects and send us in the DMs. We wanted to do we don't want like fakers though.
But that was the biggest.
It's like someone's going to say like, yeah, I went to Clemson and I saw Trevor Lawrence, like whatever, do something stupid. But like, if you have something real, please send it our way.
What spurned it was someone, can I tell the initial?
I don't want to, the initial one's kind of
involved Carlos Basham and his roommates his freshman year.
Yeah, which I thought was funny, but again, it's probably too lowbrow. Yeah. But I'd still love to see it if you have the DM. The DMs are open. The DMs are open. All right.
Carlos Basham didn't have the highest of standards, let's just say.
All right. T-Neck Man. This is from T-Neck Man. Hey, guys, love the pod. You guys take my draft season up several notches. I'm a Jersey boy living in Cincinnati. Let's go.
Hey.
Yes, because of my wife, we met at UC. Anyway, I'm a Jets fan, and I need you to humor me because I know where you stand on Darnold. If we keep Sam and trade out of 2, what kind of haul could we get, and what players could you be targeting with those first and second round picks? Never stop, never stopping.
Oh, that's a good movie.
I don't know that one. Anyway, this is funny because this was on February 4th from T-Neck Man, and Mel Kiper Jr. just came out with his latest mock draft where he has the Jets trading from 2 to 4, not grabbing a quarterback and picking up Kyle Pitts. Yeah. So answer the question first. What's your opinion of Mel Kiper's scenario of them trading from 2 to 4 and grabbing Kyle Pitts?
Again, we've banged the drum. It would be dumb to just continue to build around Sam Darnold. There's not a good reason to do so. Okay. That being said, the only good reason to do so is if you got what the Redskins got for the number 2 overall pick. Think back, 2012, RG3 trade. Rams had the number 2 overall pick. Redskins had number 6. To get from 6 to 2, they gave up their second round pick that year, and then a 2013 and a 2014 first round pick. That 2014 first round pick ended up being the number 2 overall pick, and it ended up being Greg Robinson, sadly. So they kind of blew it, the Rams. But that's the kind of haul if I'm the Jets, and that's the kind of haul it's gonna take me to move out of that number 2 overall spot. Now, the Eagles, more realistically, what I think someone would offer is what the Eagles gave up to get to number 2 in 2016 to get Carson Wentz. They had the number 8 overall pick that year, so the Browns swapped back to 8, got a 3rd and a 4th that year, and then a 1st and a 2nd the year after that. That's a more realistic scenario, and they also actually gave up a 4th. The Eagles got a 2017 4th. So that's a more realistic scenario. I wouldn't do it if I was the Jets in that situation, because I think that's kind of teams have learned that what the Redskins did was absurd.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of what the Redskins have done of late is pretty absurd. I mean, the football team. But I do think that...
Oh, gosh, yes. Then it was the R words back then, so we could say the R words then.
I don't know if that's true. All right, moving on to Bryce E. Carpenter. Amari Rodgers. Hey, guys, love the content. Keep it up. What's the deal with Rodgers? Haven't heard too much of him this offseason, and he even played well in the Senior Bowl. Could he be a steal in the draft? Which teams do you think should look to draft him, and where do you see him going? Maybe late day 2, early day 3. I just talked to Amari Rodgers.
Take it.
I really like Amari Rodgers. I recently dropped a tweet talking about like my favorite slot types in this class, and I really do think that I would feel confident, despite him not having the same maybe tools or freaky athleticism as some of these other guys. I'd feel confident taking Amari Rodgers ahead of even Darden and Tutu Atwell. Like I'm thinking about it because of how smart this guy is, and also going back and looking how well he did after the catch. He ranked, I think, number 2 in the country in yards after the catch per reception when controlling for average depth. Like he was not like a guy that consistently got thrown, screens and stuff like that and benefited from it. I do think that force missed tackle ability is underrated. Yak ability is underrated, and can't stretch the vertical. He said he could run in the 4.4s. Coach's son. I think
Amari Rodgers is your new man crush.
I think
like so you will be hearing more about Amari Rodgers because of the interview with Austin.
Gotta love that's Austin's predictable. He's got a type.
Okay,
it's
so
guys who talk well.
Everyone talks about Elijah Moore, the Ole Miss guy, who's like consistently good at a lot of things, but isn't like a freak like Rondale or Tony. I think he's a poor man's Elijah Moore in this class. Like I think he does a lot of things consistently well that I value it. Maybe day 2, day 3 guy, but I do think he's a slot type that will play well early. And I think if you're looking for a slot guy to come in and play early at a high level, I think Amari Rodgers is your guy. Jumping off of Amari Rodgers, I know we could probably spend the entire podcast on it, but how did Austin turn out normal? I'm still asking that question. I think normal is pretty subjective with the reemergence.
You haven't seen Austin on a Saturday.
With the reemergence of Aaron Rodgers as an MVP quarterback and seeming like he wants to play for several more years, would it be wise for the Packers to explore trade options for Jordan Love? With the amount of quarterback needy teams, I feel like they could get a decent return on investment for them to go all in with the Rodgers winning window. If so, what kind of value do you think they could get for Love, and who might be the best trade partners?
As much as I was not on board with the pick initially, this is no sunk cost fallacy here. You're selling at his absolute low. You got a guy who, after 1 year, was your third string quarterback. You're just not going to get a good return for that guy. Like you're not going to get the most you could get is like a Deshaun Kaiser. What the Packers get from Deshaun Kaiser, which was Damaris Randall. Most of you get is like a guy who is kind of worn out his welcome somewhere else, like another starter. You're not going to get a nice pick back from Jordan Love right now.
What do you think you would get? Second rounder?
No, you would not.
Not even a second rounder?
I don't think you get a second rounder from Jordan Love right now. He would, because of the rookie year does matter so much. And if you come in your rookie year and you can't even be the backup, you can't even beat out Tim Boyle in the Green Bay Packers room, you're just not going to get a lot of fans. And there's a reason why I fell to the back of the first round in the first place. When, again, the desperation that we're talking about, everyone wants a quarterback, and 24 teams passing on where did he go? I think this is a little different than this. Always the plan was to invest in him in development. You've made that investment. This is not a sunk cost fallacy, which I do love to talk about. Someone noted that in the comments. I do love to talk about sunk cost fallacy. I have an accounting degree. I have to justify the fact that I spent all that money, but no, because this is a sell low situation. That investment you think can grow. And then next year, say he's the number 2 quarterback, plays a spot start, looks great. That's a first round pick then that you're getting back in return. So I would not go all in because I don't think your return right now is going to be enough to justify it.
Didn't the Packers also trade up to go get
They
Jordan
did.
Love?
Well, we don't have to talk about that part. They gave up a third rounder to do so, which I'm still pretty chapped about.
I mean, spending a first and a third, and you can't even get a second round pick in return for that guy, that's definitely selling low. I definitely think you hold on to him at that point. Not hope for, but maybe if you are looking to trade him, bank on him playing in some games down the stretch where you're blowing some teams out or something. Like that's
what I'm saying. Because at the quarterback position, if a guy was drafted in the first round and is that quote unquote has the tools, all he needs to show is a glimpse, and then someone cakes their pants for him. But he has not only shown a glimpse, he's shown about as bad as you can do as a rookie, which is not even be the backup.
I think we need, so I've been wanting to say this for a while, and I'm going to go ahead and say it now. We need to get the Mike Breen bang on retainer for Quinn to play anytime you say cake my pants. Something. I need the bang involved, and I think that's a perfect addition. But we'll consider that, Quinn. We'll consider that. Axel Green on February 5th. My Denver Broncos threw assets at wide receiver last year. If the Broncos decide to continue to torture its fans with a bad quarterback, how bad of an idea would it be to go Farley round 1 and Campbell in round 2? We have Mahomes and Herbert to deal with for a quarter of every season. Would a Tampa Bay approach work out for them? Before we start, I recently talked to Patrick Surtain. That interview will play on a future episode. And I talked about, for a while, him and Tyson Campbell, the two 5-star corners playing outside corner for American Heritage for 2 years. They went undefeated 2 seasons in a row and won state championships. And he said they literally couldn't throw on us. There were games where they wouldn't even throw at us and just run the football. It's absurd. Like that combo in high school is just bonkers to me. I'm going to use bonkers again. But back to his question, what's your opinion of them going defense round 1 and 2?
I love it. This was would the Tampa Bay Bucks approach work for them? I think it would work for fucking anybody in the NFL. It's a great approach. When you secondary, it's again a weak link proposition. You need 3 good corners. If you have like 1 good corner can help out elsewhere, you can scheme coverages to a degree to help out your other guys. But when you have no holes that are easy to attack, like we talked about with the Trevor Lawrence thing, you attack your favorable matchups when you see things like man coverage. When your most favorable matchup is Alan Lazard against your 3rd cornerback in Sean Murphy-Bunting, and Sean Murphy-Bunting picks off that route, that's a play that if you don't have Sean Murphy-Bunting there, if you didn't invest that 2nd round pick, that's a game-changing play that is not made otherwise, because that's basically the gist of how pass defense and coverage works. So I love the strategy. The guys that I think would fit Vic Fangio's scheme, I didn't love Ojemudia last year. I thought that was a tad bit of a reach. I think if you go someone like Asante Samuel, Greg Newsome, both can play in that scheme day one, have that. Those are probably the top 2 zone corners in the draft after Caleb Farley, I'd say. And so obviously Vic Fangio, known for his split field safety zone schemes. I love that fit. So there you go.
Can we talk more about the Northwestern cornerback, Greg Newsome? I really like Newsome a lot. He's got length. He's got speed. I like his change
maybe the
direction.
best. I don't think he has speed.
Really?
That's the one thing I worry about. I think he's maybe a 4.5 guy, but he has probably the best hips.
The swivel
in the draft class
is legit.
Yeah.
I mean, there's some all-22 of Greg Newsome that we haven't shared on the timeline. That is honestly really, really impressive.
Yeah.
Like how he's able to kind of stick with guys, I thought was awesome. And he's got the length. I think Indianapolis is licking their chops to go get Greg Newsome.
Yeah, they're the length kings, which sounds like a
Isn't that a site you subscribe to? Length Kings. Oh man, I was watching Superbad with my mom recently. She's never seen it. And you know that the cold open is Jonah Hill's character saying, "We gotta subscribe to the Fantastic Voyage." And my mom's like, "What is this?" I'm like, "Oh fuck."
Perfect 10.
Yeah, Perfect 10. Oh, that could be a bowling website. All right, Pac-12 Packers fan. I think this guy's a Packers fan. Looking at the PFF draft board, where does 1st, 2nd, and 3rd round graded talent end? If you were the Packers GM and utilizing your board, who would you draft in the first 4 rounds? Thank you.
So you always hear so-and-so team has 16 first-round grades, but that's because they don't have guys on their board altogether that don't fit their scheme, don't fit their whatever personality thresholds, injury thresholds. So we're a little bit different in terms of everyone fits our personality threshold and scheme personality threshold, I shouldn't say, scheme thresholds, that sort of thing. So I would put it at about 28th on our board. Jalen Phillips is the last guy I'd call 1st round grade. 61st on our board. Ronnie Perkins, the last guy I'd call a 2nd round grade, even though Ronnie Perkins is about to move up. 100 on our board. Amon-Ra's the last guy I'd call a 3rd round grade. There you go. There you have it.
And who should they take in rounds?
Okay,
1 through 4.
I actually, this got me horny doing this exercise because I was
easy.
This is what
date was last night. The date was last night.
This was what I do as a kid. This is how I got into this, was just making this. Who are they going to get first? Who are they going to get second? Rashad Bateman and Rondale Moore. 1st round pick. That's who I'm getting. Immediate impact wide receiver. Immediately a guy who can get off press coverage. Immediately a guy who can rely
Rondale
upon.
Moore to Green Bay at 29. I'd be doing freaking backflips if I were you.
It would be my AJ Dillon reaction last year, where I felt like I had been stabbed. The opposite of that. Cake pants. No, 2nd round, Walker Little.
Ooh.
If he's on the board there, you pull that trigger.
He's moving up boards too. Mel Kiper Jr. just dropped him at 31 to the Chiefs.
Yeah.
And he was your guy.
He's my guy. But if he's on the board in the 2nd, that one's the easy money. Benjamin St. Juste in the 3rd. Long, different type of cornerback than Jair Alexander. But they're moving to the Fangio scheme. They're moving to off zone, where a guy like that, I think, can succeed, even though he's can hold up in man coverage as well. And then the 4th, Justin Hilliard, my boy at linebacker. Not going to go super high because of his injury red flags. But man, He's talented. And he's NFL ready because he's already 24 years old. So.
Yeah, someone was actually sending me DMs on Instagram about Justin Hilliard and valued him as like a top 2, top 3 linebacker. And I think from purely a tools and traits perspective, this guy is a freak. Awesome. I mean, former 5-star. You see the explosiveness.
And honestly, from a tape perspective, this past season, that was first round linebacker tape.
Absolutely.
But it was 200 snaps. Is the problem.
Yeah, and it's only been 200 snaps for the past. Like he has not played a lot of football, and he's old. I think there's reasons for him to fall down boards for that, like other than his tape. Yeah. But his tape is definitely up there.
He was the only one that showed up against Alabama. For them. No Tommy Togiai though. Underrated storyline from that game.
Future friend of the pod. All right, Joko G-Ba. If you're the Chargers drafting at 13 and 45, taking cornerback and offensive tackle, which has better overall value? Darisaw/Slater in the first, and Adebo and Aaron Robinson in the second, or a Farley Surtain Horn situation in the first, and Cosme Little in the second. Maybe not these specific, but just the positions. What are your thoughts?
I think I like offensive tackle first in that scenario. The certainty, you can't get another project offensive lineman and throw Justin Herbert to the Wolves sort of thing. You need a guy who you're going to feel real good about coming in and starting and playing well. That's Darisaw or Slater. So I like offensive tackle in that scenario. And then, like I said, there's a number of toolsy corners, not Paulson Adebo, but we've talked about Greg Newsome, Aaron Robinson, Tyson Campbell, guys in that mix who would be good fits for the Chargers. So
I definitely think they're going to get a better haul going offensive tackle, whether it's Darisaw or Slater at 13, and then attacking cornerback in round 2. I think you're right there.
Or, honestly, I'm not sure cornerback's necessarily the biggest. Like, they could go other positions, too.
True. All right, let's move off of that.
Like this, the next one's...
O'Leaf 18. Love this pod.
Oh, no, this is Giants one, sorry.
I use your points all the time. You guys are my number one resource for draft season. Assuming they're available, should the Giants go Slater, Farley, or Waddle? Thanks, guys. Keep it up.
I like Waddle. You're not gonna get his skill set elsewhere. I know there's a lot of that types in the class, but man, just not. He's different. It's different level of certainty there. So I go Waddle.
We mentioned this on the
even though low key cornerback could be the move there for them at 11 if the 3 wideouts, the top 3 are off the board.
If corners get by the Broncos and Cowboys at 9 and 10, and you can get your hands on a Farley,
the Broncos go get their QB.
There's also a lot of mixed opinions on this cornerback class. Have you seen some of that? I think I've seen Eric Crocker, who's really good, evaluator.
Horn.
Yeah. He has J.C. Horn.
I've
seen J.C. Horn and Surtain over Farley in some guys' boards. People really like. And Kelvin Joseph, the Kentucky guy, who is another guy that people like as a CB1, CB2 in some spots. But Jalen Waddle,
that's wild.
It goes back to what we kind of said on the Wednesday episode when we're doing the NFC team previews, is that I really do think they need to do all that they can to find out what they have in Daniel Jones and follow the Brandon Beane model in giving him every single resource he needs to see if he pans out. And it's kind of like what the Denver Broncos did with Drew Lock this past year by bringing in Judy, KJ Hamler, Albert Okui-Bunam, like trying to really build up around him to see if he could have it, see if he could do it. Yeah. And that obviously didn't pan out, but you just need to see it. And you need to do everything you can to put him in a situation to succeed so that way you could properly evaluate him. All right, because you don't want to be, because the other part of that is you don't want to be in the Jet situation. Like, they don't really know if Sam Darnold has it. And there are still people like Mel Kiper Jr. who thinks he could turn it around without Adam Gase and stuff like that, which maybe is true. Like, there's a range of outcomes where Sam Darnold improves significantly, absolutely. But you want to avoid that situation. You want to avoid that uncertainty by making sure you build around him and put him in a situation to succeed where you can properly come out of a season and say, hey, it didn't work. We gave him Jalen Waddle, Andrew Thomas. We added an interior offensive line in day 2. Like, all that stuff needs to matter. All right, this is from General Higgins. This is definitely my go-to podcast nowadays. Austin keeps growing on me with his hilarious stories. I'll take it. And Mike's a chill dude with a weird accent. Fair. Not enough people bring that up. Your accent's weird, man.
Wisconsin accents
suck.
Yeah, they're actually not great.
I definitely think my MO, though, is
not attractive.
My MO is definitely that I grow on you. I'm not someone that comes out of the bat and you're like, I love that guy. You're like, oh, what the hell is going on? Oh, wait, it's kind of interesting. That's kind of the reviews I mostly get.
Like on Tinder, you got to be like weeks in before you get that date.
Exactly. That's why I don't thrive at clubs. Like clubs, you like immediately got to dance with that guy. It's like, no, you don't. You don't want to get near that guy. Anyway, as a Giants fan, I've been seeing a plethora of draft picks mocked for them at 11, from wide receiver to corner to edge defender. In your opinion, what player would be the best choice for them at 11? We just kind of answered this, but especially weighting positional value, what player do you think will end up getting?
Yeah, I meant to put those Giants questions together.
All good.
My bad.
All good.
But yeah, wide receiver.
Yeah.
you need the one. You need the guy. Is why I keep saying it with the Giants. You need the go-to guy to pair with Daniel Jones. And again, the properly evaluating thing is big because statistically, he sucked. Like his grading is better than his statistics, but his grading is still not great either.
Yeah.
So you need, admittedly, terrible situation with that offensive line and a middling group of wide receivers. But again, fix that. And if then the other things don't get fixed, well, then shit, then you know. So, and then what do you think they'll end up taking? I honestly think it will be Devontae Smith. I do think the wide receivers will drop a bit. I think you'll see quarterbacks go hot, and then teams maybe who would have been in the wide receiver mix, Eagles being one, like go quarterback in this draft. So I think I think Jamar Chase is the only wide receiver who ends up in the top 10 all said and done.
Wow. That's quite the take. Because I also think, Penei Sewell, Jamar Chase, I think the corners could go higher than people think, like a Farley, like a Surtain. And at that point, you could see some of these receivers, whether it's Smith or Waddle, dip out of the top 10. Let's see now. Hey, Andy 23. This is on, I think, in February 9th or something. First, how do you see Jaden Daniels shaping up as a future quarterback prospect?
We already talked about that one. Hopefully you listened to that episode last mailbag.
Yeah, Jaden Daniels. I still want to hear a little bit more about the guy. If they didn't listen to that last episode, don't just ruin it for people.
I think I listened to that last episode. He's a loyal listener. I'll trust him.
Okay, cool.
This is Toolsy, super skinny though. That guy's like 195.
Thin, very thin.
The rail.
And for the Arizona Cardinals, should they focus on wide receiver or cornerback in the first round?
We got talked about this with the free agent that they could make a play at corner, and I'd like to see that. The problem is, it's the one's going to depend on the board because I think the big three that we keep talking about, that tier one of the wide receiver position is going to be gone. And then after that, there's a lot of guys in kind of a mix that 16th overall is not going to give you your value over where you're going to get in the middle of the second round. So I'd probably wait to the middle of the second round to address wide receiver at that point and then hope someone like J.C. Horn, Patrick Surtain is there. Then that's where I'd go. And if none of them are, well, shit, you have other positions you can draft. You don't have to pigeonhole yourself into those two. So if all six of those guys are off the board, the big three corners, the big three wide receivers, sneaky in the edge market. That's where I'd be looking past.
Especially getting ahead of the Raiders, who I think will be taking an edge at 17. All right, NRS 922. My question, as a diehard Bears fan, I was wondering at pick 20 or at the back end of the top 10 with a trade, which quarterback do you think they should target with Nagy's offense in mind?
The dream is Justin Fields falling and being able to go up and get him. That's your dream. He'd be the best fit for that offense. Sadly, I don't think it's the case. If anyone falls, I think it'd be Trey Lance. And it'd still be fine going up and making that play, but I don't think it's a great fit for Nagy's offense. Mac Jones is not a bad fit for Nagy's offense, but man, any quarterback expecting them to come in year one with kind of the collection of talent they will have, which is to say it's not a great collection of talent offensively at this point. If Allen Robinson walks, I don't think it's going to be a huge year-on-year leap to where, I just don't think Mac Jones. I wouldn't take Mac Jones. That's all I'm saying.
I mean, and you've talked about it again on the NFC preview. You're saying Jameis Winston.
Jameis Winston to
Chicago, not Mac Jones, not Justin Fields, not Trey Lance. Go get yourself Jameis Winston.
Did you bottom out? That you fucking like that next year? There's always
next year.
Take the chance then.
All right.
But they also have really not added draft talent because of the Khalil Mack trade. They've just not added a lot of young blue chip talent. They're relying on old guys. So you can get a quarterback young and cheap and keep kicking that can in terms of trying to sign free agents. But at some point you need to refuel the coffers with young talent.
Yep. All right. This is from Gun at Houston. My question. Do you all think other teams will follow the Sean Payton lead and have a backup quarterback who plays the gadget quarterback position like Taysom Hill? As quarterbacks get older, wouldn't it make sense for teams to have those players for load management? It's an interesting question. If y'all do think it's a good idea, how about the Bucs taking Sam Ehlinger of Texas on the third day to lessen the load for Tom if/when his age finally catches up with him?
All right. I have to admit, and I'm not trying to be mean here, but when I saw this question, I audibly laughed out loud.
It's funny.
Sam Ehlinger, just the suggestion of, what do you think of, taking Brady off the field to play Sam Ehlinger a little bit? Just
to lessen the load.
Really it got me. But my theory on this, and maybe it's Steve's theory that I don't really love the way Steve phrases it, but Steve calls it the JT Barrett theory, where a guy who's not actually a good passer but is mobile and will protect the football can still give you a good offense. Mine is more, your backup quarterback, backup quarterbacks suck wholesale to begin with. If you want to try your best opportunity to win games with the backup quarterback is to have them be a Jalen Hurts, a guy in that mold who is a mobile quarterback. To then you come in and you immediately you have like a dozen or so option runs. That's what you're going to base the offense out of. That play action, a few passing concepts, a very simplistic offense, but guys who have that mobility can still lead you a higher floor offense than a shitty backup quarterback would. So I think that's an untapped resource, is the Jalen Hurtses of the draft. I'm trying to think who would, Jamie Newman in this year's class as your backup to basically come in and just start glorified Wildcat at that point when your backup quarterback comes in, instead of trying to have, Chad Henne come in and win you a game and throw. And shit, Chad Henne won that game because of his legs. He scrambled for that third down to get it to 4th and inches.
I got one for you.
That's what I would do.
Tim Tebow just retired from baseball. If you're going to use a gadget quarterback, he's available.
I like it. I honestly
Sign Tim Tebow
really, really
30,
like it.
whatever he is.
Next up on First Take.
We haven't talked about this enough because we're talking about Taysom Hill a little bit, but like Taysom Hill could be the Saints starter quarterback for 16 games next year.
Yeah, he's not a gadget guy, so come on.
I honestly think that given all the praise that Sean Payton has thrown at him, it's like, are you gonna call that bluff? Like you're paying him all this money.
It really was him just throwing his dick on the table this year, starting Taysom Hill. I think he honestly knew that Jameis Winston was a better quarterback.
So everyone says that. I disagree. I don't think he's playing games like that. He paid him for a reason.
Have you seen his Twitter account? He would.
He does play games.
Ultimate.
I think Taysom Hill is the starter week 1.
I love.
I think if they don't get Mac Jones at 28, which is obviously a pipe dream, now that Mel Kiper's mocking him as high as 8 to the Panthers, I think they're starting Taysom Hill at week 1, and it's going to run with
starter. All right, last point on this. I don't think that taking your load management thing, I don't love that as a strategy, I'll say, for aging quarterbacks. I don't think it's that necessary.
Open Music Yo. Great draft insight. Might bring back the long locks from the Bachelorette days. A lot of talk about the tackle talent in this draft, but what about Brady Christensen of BYU? First team All-American in 2020, 3 years of starting at BYU, and had the second highest PFF grade on offense ever. What limits him to a third-round sort of prospect? Love the pod. Thanks.
Stiff is, I think, the biggest thing. You watch him and just very upright and struggles to sink. And then when he went against Peyton Turner, Houston Edge kind of got exposed, and that only went against him a few snaps, but I think lost on a number of them. And it's limited agility. So I think guard is where he probably ends up. And so immediately if you're going, he's not a tackle, value's going down. He's a guard, a little stiff guard. That's kind of a day 3 guy.
He's working with Duke Manyweather right now. I was talking to Creed Humphrey and Jackson Carman last night, and they were saying he's working out there with them. Jackson Carman, by the way, he's an interesting personality. That interview will play on a future podcast. But he said he's talked to a ton of NFL teams. Not a single one sees him at guard. Every single one sees him at left tackle.
He can move.
Yeah.
He's a big-ass dude, but that guy can move.
He kind of had a humble brag. He's like, not a single one said that I'm at guard, and a lot of them see me as one of the top offensive tackles in this class. Dude has some poise to his game, which I liked.
Did you move up your board?
I brought up the story, too, about you grading him in high school.
Oh, yeah.
He does have a notebook, and he does have a notebook. Fuck you. He does have a notebook where he charts pass rushers. He's sending me it via fax, so eat shit. Julie Dees. This is from Julie Dees.
Wait, what did he say about high school? I didn't.
Remember you?
Yeah, no. What did he say about it?
He said, "Yeah, I was just a monster. I just destroyed people."
He didn't even try.
Yeah, he was not.
He did try, but he didn't have to try.
He also is very self-aware. He brings up that I know I have all this potential. I know I'm one of the better athletes in this class. I got to live up to it. I think that self-awareness underrated, dude. I'm telling you, self-awareness is very underrated.
Is a notebook a good thing? Shouldn't it be
Notebook
digital?
Is a great thing. That movie.
The Notebook's a great movie.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, if you have a notebook, what do you not embrace technology?
He might not embrace technology. No, you're right. I should have followed up with that. Should have pressed him.
Killing trees.
Is it a composition
Not
notebook?
good. Falling down my board. Yep.
You stuck in the 90s, Jackson? I should have said that next time. Being that Quinn Minor's 2019 film is not that dominant for D3 competition, is he overhyped by the fun workout videos and the Senior Bowl? Or do you believe he's a truly different player than he was in 2019?
I think your most recent tape is always the tape you'd like to go out. Unless you have a legitimate, injury, something else reason for why you played poorly. If your best football was your last year, that's kind of what you base your evaluation of a prospect on. So his latest tape that we saw was pretty dang good. Like at the Senior Bowl, that was standout for sure performance. Now, it wasn't great. To me, I still like Ben Barch better as a prospect last year. I thought he went to the Senior Bowl and played better. Now, he didn't have his belly hanging out, didn't have the flow, wasn't quite at the same, or did he have the flow? I can't remember. Didn't have the same sort of hoopla going on around him. Didn't have the same pancakes, but I thought he was, what he looked like there was just better projectable to the NFL. So I think maybe the hype was, like, he's still in the 20s on our draft board. We're not considering him, you know, like Ali Marpet was after that Senior Bowl win, the top of the second round. I think he's a nice option, but late day 2, early day 3 is where I'd probably see him.
And that's
still
exactly where
coming
Ben
off the
Barch
board.
ended up. You know,
Yeah.
Ben Barch is what, fourth
rounder.
round pick? I think that's where Quinn Miners ultimately ends up as well.
Yeah, sorry, Owen.
All right, this is from Aguar2468. This is a little bit long-winded intro, but I think it's kind of funny, so I'll read it. Review. If you like the NFL but don't want to listen to Stephen A. Smith call Dwayne Haskins more of a runner, this is the podcast for you. Austin will tell you every episode with amazement that a prospect was a 3-sport athlete in high school. That's incredible. Mike is a great dude despite at first, and this is true, giving off a guy who calls his family lawyer because you spilled a drink on his Sperry's vibes. Isn't someone in your family a lawyer?
My mom. I would definitely call my mom if someone spilled a drink in my Sperry. So yeah.
Do you have Sperry's?
Yeah, I have Sperry.
It's not that obvious.
You know I look like I have Sperry's. Come on.
You're like, yeah, I have Sperry's.
I think you're the only one that doesn't have Sperry's, Austin.
Yeah, dude.
Well, fuck
Sperry's
me. I'll get
is-
some Sperry's.
It's kind of Sperry's the East Coast thing though.
Okay.
I don't think it's a West Coast.
I could be a Beast
It's like
Coast.
Vans is the West Coast Sperry.
Oh, wow.
It's a take.
I like that take. All right, let's get to his question. Following up, he had the Tahir Whitehead at each position question. That one was awesome. He's following that one up with another banger here. I've always had a hunch that all the money and effort teams put into scouting is a waste. There was a 538 article a while ago that detailed how there's pretty much no correlation between how well GMs draft from year to year, and thus no such thing as a good drafter / scout. I believe if you gave the average 2-for-1 listener control of a team's draft and they picked players according to a consensus draft board, they'd have much more success. Thoughts?
You run with this one.
I'm
So you
all
have
for
takes
it.
on
I
this.
think this is a very, very good idea. And here's what you do. You bring in the consensus board, which is obviously loaded with a lot of groupthink bias. You're going
it
to
has
see
some.
like Mel Kiper, like big influencers will influence other, like Kiper, Jeremiah, McShay. I put you in the conversation. I love you. You're going to influence.
I
You're
put
going to
me in my own
influence.
conversation above that, actually. But yeah.
You're going to influence
Self-awareness.
the layman's board, you know, so a point where like this thing's kind of got some consensus or groupthink bias regardless. But just working off the consensus board, I think, and then funneling the money you pay the scouts and the evaluators into development personnel, guys that can turn a 20-year-old, you know, that guy that has made a lot of bad decisions into a good professional football player. That is where there isn't enough money spent. Take all the salaries you pay the scouts and pay them to people that can develop and mature talent. Give each of your first-round picks 2 personal assistants to guide them through the process, help them financially, help them make good decisions off the field, marriage counseling, whatever it has to be. Like, develop these guys, because that's how players bust, in my opinion. It's not hard to identify athletes with all the data and information and tape made available on these guys. It's not hard to identify the best rare athletes in each class. The problem is, the difficulty is developing those guys and make sure they stay on the train tracks to actually reach that potential. I mean, you see it 1,000 times. Isaiah Wilson drafted in the first round because he's an absolute behemoth and has rare traits, but just veered off the tracks like right out of the gate.
Yeah.
Like, you needed to literally handhold that guy. And if you took the salaries you pay scouts and pay them into guys who could develop that talent, specifically the top 50, top 100 players you bring in, I think you'd have some good success. Would you be the best drafting team in the NFL? No, but I think it'd be enough to like really put you over the hunch.
Yeah, I would get psychiatrists on staff to actually
Yes.
psychoanalyze guys and be like, this is his sort of trajectory as a human being. Would be a better way than saying, I like the cut of his jib. Some scout saying that, I think, in my opinion. But I also think the whole, these guys on the outside, whatever, they wouldn't know how to draft, just going off the pure consensus board. The draft history of some teams are just awful. We talked about, how the Eagles, Seahawks, who was the other one in recent years? Patriots haven't even been
Raiders
good.
have done a lot of overdrafting.
There's been some just ugly drafts to where this isn't rocket science. As much as I'd like it to be rocket science, because that would probably help me out in my career and I'd probably be more capable at it. It's not a super difficult thing to identify who's good at football and who's not. You all get the same tape.
If you go back and look at the biggest reaches on the consensus board, it was Jordan Brooks, Isaiah Wilson, and Damon Arnett in the first round. Those are the biggest reaches. And I think you could argue, like, going back, like, Isaiah Wilson was obviously a bad pick. Damon Arnett still has a lot to prove, and so does Jordan Brooks. But, like, I really do think that using the consensus board, you're not going to find yourself making a ton of terrible decisions.
Yeah.
Like, you're not.
I've kept, my biggest thing about, I don't want to say what I've learned, but in terms of your biggest way to get that edge in the draft is to eliminate outlier guys.
Yes.
Eliminate those guys that you know you shouldn't be drafting at that point in time. And that would be
your Isaiah Wilsons, your Damon Arnett.
That would be, the guys who are, whether it's didn't produce at all in college.
And even if you're not using the consensus board
of
completely, like
eliminate outliers.
Leveraging it in some ways to say, like, hey, we like Damon Arnett here, but he's like 30 spots higher than where people see him on the consensus. Let's try and trade back. And if we don't end up there, we draft the next best guy. Like, we'll find a way to make it happen. You don't have to lock into your guy and make sure you get your guy. Like, there's a lot of talented players in every single draft. I think the other thing I'll say is it kind of double downing on the take I dropped a couple of weeks ago or months ago, is that draft evaluation is gotten to a point where it's overrated, where like it's just way too overvalued, and that like you have to have rankings for your receivers. This guy's better than this guy. CeeDee Lamb is better than Jerry Jeudy. I freaking believe it. It's like, that's too far. You don't need to think about think about draft evaluation like that. A lot of players can be good in certain situations and all that type of stuff. So I definitely think the consensus board idea, I love it. All right, next question. This guy's username is Life of the Search Party, which I love. Do the Cowboys have any chance of signing Leonard Williams or even a Shelby Harris in free agency? I think they should use their their first two picks on cornerback and offensive tackle, respectively, and the prospects for a defensive tackle in the third round are not starter material. Starter material, sorry. I would also cut Tristan Hill and not re-sign Crawford. What should they do to fix the defensive line to pair with Gallimore?
You had a time with that one.
That was fucking great.
I will say, if they have any hopes of keeping Dak Prescott, they will not be able to re-sign Leonard Williams or Shelby Harris. They could, you can move money around to get into kind of the market they'll be in at defensive tackle. It's not a terrible market to be in. Kawan Short, Derek Wolfe, Jonathan Hankins, Mike Pennell. It's not great, but it's better than Dontari Poe, who had retired the year prior but decided to take another paycheck, sort of thing. So yeah,
there you go. All right, we gotta keep moving here. We gotta keep getting through these questions. We're gonna have to do another bonus mailbag next week.
We have too much fun answering them, and then we go on for a little bit too long.
I go off on a tangent and start talking about your mom. Anyway,
do the big red mitten one there.
Okay, big red mitten.
The other one.
Lions GM Brad Holmes traded for Jared Goff initially. Gave every Detroit fan an aneurysm. After further consideration, the move looks shrewd and chess-like from every Detroit fan. Well, from a team building standpoint, admittedly something Lions fans aren't used to seeing. Assuming they continue this theme by bypassing the quarterback in 2020 and electing to build around the future franchise player, essentially delaying the benefits of the rookie deal, a la KC Patrick Mahomes, which quarterbacks in 2022 and 2023 can we start looking forward to that will fit in Danny Kneecaps Campbell and Anthony Lynn scheme, what they want to do in year 2, year 3?
All right. So, yeah, Spencer Rattler, Sam Howell. You want one of those two guys, I'll just say. Keaton Slovis, we can maybe have Tresh on to pump up Keaton Slovis a little bit, but I don't think he holds candle to those two. I think those two are very, very talented and have kind of that like complete skill set that you want at the quarterback position. So those guys, I already kind of under the radar guys pumped up Malik Willis. And then 2023, our boy, I think our favorite draft prospect of all time. We're going to say it right now, DJ Uiagalelei.
Uiagalelei in 2023 is the move. But in 2022, I definitely agree that it's Rattler or Howell right now. I do think, though, looking at some of the data last night at what Keaton Slovis did in 2019, if he can have similar success in a full season, non-COVID impacted in 2021, I think you'll see him move up some boards. I've also heard Dane Brugler of The Athletic, one of the, what did I call him? Elite minds in the space. Elite minds in the space. I do think he's big on Keaton Slovis too. I think he really likes him as well. So I think that's another guy to look out for. I know right now he's that QB3 consensus, but I think you could see him maybe move up in the future. All right, moving forward here from BearMat3. Sewell is a no-brainer at 5 if he's there, but if Walker Little is at 38, do you pull the trigger? Yes. This depends on what info and videos come out between now and the draft. 38 for me is maybe a reach, but pick 69 would be nice for sure.
Yeah, Walker Little at 38, I'm on board. For sure.
He also adds, sign Trent Williams to gain some veteran presence. His knowledge would be very valuable to Sewell and Walker and provide stability while in transition into the league. Final piece is to sign Corey Linsley. Best graded center, and Mike said center is number 2 of the O-line power ranking.
Well, it's number 3 because LT and RT are equal.
Yeah.
So it's that tie and then tie at 1 and then a number 3. Sadly, Cincinnati is not yet a destination for free agents. I find it hard to believe.
I don't think Trent Williams goes to Cincinnati.
Yeah, I just find it hard to believe guys towards the end of their careers would want to come to Cincinnati. Sorry, Quinn. Sorry.
As good as Skyline Chili is, I don't think Trent Williams wants to spend some of his final years in Cincinnati.
I was going to say that'll shorten your career there. And then center, like Trey Hopkins, probably their second best offensive lineman right now. So I don't think they're going to be addressing center.
He's hurt,
love
though.
him there.
He blew out his knee, so he might not be around for, yeah.
Oh,
so I think center sneaky is a low-key need.
Dude,
Unless you want to roll Billy
Quinn
Price
just
out
making
there.
up freaking random accounts to just ask questions on the pod. You could just ask us, Quinn. You could just ask us.
What was
I already
his knee?
did.
I don't know. I didn't see that news.
Oh, he tore his ACL. in week
Yeah,
17.
it was last game of the year, yeah.
Oh, that's
goddamn.
brutal.
When you're that bad and you're that far out of it, it's tough to make headlines.
Yeah, that's
Fair enough.
Center getting tear his ACL is not. Yeah,
This is from Uppery. I expected the content to be good. I did not expect the personalities and banter to be good. Best and most entertaining draft podcast. hands
shots
down.
fired. What do we look like?
Yeah.
We're sucking
You didn't expect us to be
sprouts.
good? I guess I have grown on people. Anyway.
Yeah, I was gonna say you kind of just said you don't expect to be good.
By all accounts, it appears that the Jaguars are switching to a 3-4 defense this year. How do you think their existing personnel fits that, specifically Devon Hamilton at nose tackle? What defensive line draft prospects should they target?
I think it's a really good fit, and not just Devon Hamilton nose tackle on a 3-4. It's not pure. No one runs pure zero techs anymore. That's not a thing.
Yeah,
it's very. That's the most similar role between 3-4 and 4-3 nowadays. It's the stand up versus on ball, the edge guys that are different. And Kalen Jason played outside linebacker in college at LSU, off standing up. Josh Allen played standing up at Kentucky. So I think it fits them better, those two guys at least. And what they would need is that you got the nose, 2 edge, kind of need that 5 tech. You need the guy with length who can take on tackles. They don't really have that. Now, they could address that in free agency. I don't think that'd be a bad shout. I think Henry Anderson might get cut, might be available, would be a guy I'd look at there. Also, if you're going to address in the draft, there's not a lot in this class,
Peyton Turner.
sadly. Peyton Turner's one, Rashad Weaver's one, Osa Odighizuwa's one as well. Osa Odighizuwa would probably be the guy I'd go with because run defense on the interior, he's got that. And that's, you got your edge guys as your pass rushers. If you're going to have a pure, that 5 tech's not really a pass rushing position, go for the guy who can really stuff the run.
This is from the person that sent this. Is Penei Sewell draft value falling because he opted out of the 2020 season?
No.
We can just move on.
Yeah. Sorry.
He's not. I mean,
don't know why I said
but like,
sorry.
why?
I'm not sorry.
Do you think there are players though that opted out of 2020 that are seeing their stock fall outside of Jamie Newman? I think that's the most obvious one. Are there any other guys that like, man, if he played,
Greg Rousseau, he's not in that edge one conversation. Could have been edge one quite easily. He comes back and looks. It was never going to look like Chase Young. He's not Chase Young as an athlete, but if he comes back and looks more dominant than Jalen Phillips, if he's playing better than Jalen Phillips, he would have been edge one. You know?
yeah,
So
fair enough. All right, this is the last one of the podcast, and it's from our boy Drill Clinton, who is a big fan. He's a big fan. He's got 3 questions in this one. Best draft podcast ever. Love the stories. Amazed every single time. Need the first date and the mom I wanted, something like that. 3 questions.
not what it said.
Am I
Just read
crazy?
what it said.
It says, so far it's either lush first date story or mom most wanted. That's right.
there
Yeah.
you go.
Well, my mom did her time. People keep saying it's incriminating. She did her time. Apparently she went to jail 3 times. I thought it was just once.
No, she's never been caught.
She's never been caught though. It was like that part in The Office where it's like, I never got caught neither. I don't know if you guys watch The Office. I'm kind of sad for that. But am I crazy to think Deshaun Watson trade is a good thing? I would send him to Miami for 3 first rounders, a second, Tua, and Xavier Howard. Trade 3 back, accumulate more picks in 3 to 5 years, and have a team full of talent. Plus, whatever you get for J.J. Watt, you could build a team similar to the football team, especially if you draft well. So
He got nothing for J.J. Watt.
this was before, obviously, J.J. Watt was released. They didn't get anything for J.J. Watt, but I'm kind of with this guy about like, dude, go get 3 first rounders, a second rounder, Xavier Howard, Tua. Go get the most you can get.
They're not throwing in Xavier Howard. They might throw in Tua in a deal like that. They're not going to throw in. They want to win. Like if you're targeting for Deshaun Watson, you want to win now.
True.
You're not going to give up a piece that could help you win now. So they're not going to get Xavier. Who's the Xavier? Xavier Collins. Okay. I'm losing it. But I still don't think that's great from the Texans perspective. I think the only thing right now that as a Texans fan I could get excited about is Jeff Bezos is looking to buy a team. That's the only thing I can get excited about as a Texans fan right now.
Isn't it Bezos?
I don't really care.
Either way, I do think that trying to get the highest bidder makes sense, but ESPN just reported this, that they are like not even picking up the phone. Houston is not even
For Jeff Bezos?
No.
I'm kidding.
For Deshaun Watson.
Yeah.
They're not even picking up the phone. They do not want to trade Deshaun Watson, which honestly, as you said before, is probably the best move. All right, second question. Would you push some of these speedy slot types down with the abundance of them in the draft, like you would rather have Waddle in the first or say Darden or Tutu and day 2, day 3? I just think the value is greater.
Yeah, I think after Waddle, I can get on board with saying that, where it's like, I'm 19, I'm the football team. Do I really want to go Kadarius Toney when I can get a similar skill set in my offense, like in the second? So I do think that will push those guys maybe into the top of the second, maybe in the late first, guys like Elijah Moore, Kadarius Toney, Rondale Moore, because of that.
Last one from Drew Clinton. If Michael Parsons fell to the Ravens, would you feel good about him as a hybrid
I think
edge?
we could just stop that one there.
He's not going to fall to the
falling
Ravens.
to the
Yeah,
Ravens.
fair enough.
And then it's
He has another question.
Kyle Pitts as well. That one's not falling to the Ravens.
Yeah.
Ravens they're in that kind of the other wide receiver market that we just said. And what was it? Kuiper had Chavis Marshall mock there?
Yeah.
I think that's reasonable because that's the kind of guy. We said Rashad Bateman. Obviously, the NFL might be higher on Marshall because of his physical tools, but that's the kind of guy you'd want to pair with.
I like Bateman there.
You don't want the small slots there. You want the big slot.
The big slot. All right. We got through February 7th. We now are at February 8th. We have to do a bonus mailbag next week, and this time we have to tease it. We do another bonus mailbag, try and get into the 20s for February, and I think we're finally on track. Remember, if you want your question answered in 2023, go to Apple Podcasts, leave a 5-star review, and put your question in there. We can definitely get to it. We'll get there. These will slow down eventually. The support will slow.
I hope not.
Actually, I hope not, but I think they will eventually. Who knows? As we get into April, though, these things are going to cook.
Yeah, we might have a mailbag week.
It's mailbag every night. Mailbag for 24 hours. Just constantly moving.
Live mailbag extravaganza.
On like a Saturday. Quinn would love that.
I mean, that's fine. We could a live call-in show would be
that would be
the
dope.
dream.
Live call-in show.
That'd be
I'm
hilarious.
drinking.
No, you're not drinking.
I'm drinking.
All right. Anyway, moving forward here.
Want to end the show?
This is the end of the show. What the hell was I going to say? End of the show. Austin Gale, Mike Renner, producer Mike Quinn, 2-for-1 Drafts. Joining the 2-for-1 Drafts podcast is former Washington cornerback, safety, defensive playmaker. Let's call him playmaker at this point. Elijah Molden, live from Irvine. I definitely am jealous of the weather you're getting there in California. Cincinnati, it's not looking so great, but it's great to have you on the podcast, man.
Man, thanks for setting this up. Yeah, I mean, right now it's like 70 degrees out here and everywhere else is snowed over, so not complaining.
Living the freaking dream, dude, and that's awesome. How has the offseason been for you? How has the training process been for you? I know you're out there training at Irvine. How things have been going?
Unbelievable, man. It's like right now it's a crazy part of my career. You know, it's kind of like before everything kicks off, and right now I'm just being exposed to like a bunch of professionals who have dedicated their lives to, you know, one part of the game of football. So I'm just soaking it all up and just, you know, getting better.
I'm sure you're working on like all of the drills that you'll be running at your pro day in the future. But are there any specific drills that you're putting extra emphasis on, or any goal times that you have that you're working on? I'd be interested to know, you know, if you have like certain drills in mind, like I have to hit on this drill, I have to hit on this drill, or if you're setting any goals for those. Did I lose you? There you are.
I'm not gonna give you a number.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna give you a number just because I'm gonna keep that close to the chest. But the 40, I'll run pretty well. But that's been the main focus, and then, you know, obviously the other stuff too. You can't, you know, just forget about other things.
And then, what weight did you play at this past year at Washington? Do you have a goal weight in mind right now?
Man, I've been at like 190, 192 for the past couple of years. My body's kind of changed. I put on more muscle and I'm more lean, but I've stayed at 192. So I'll probably be between 192 and 195.
A lot of the conversation around, I think, your draft stock or your profile, your scouting report, whatever it may be, will be about where you play in the NFL. I think PFF sees you more as a slot safety type. I think you could play outside corner. I think you could stay at slot corner, maybe even play deep safety. Do you have a position in mind that you cater your strengths to, or do you feel that you can play anything? You are this chess piece at the next level.
No, so yeah, I mean, I'd be every week I'd be getting grades from you guys and whatnot. One week I was at corner, another week I was at safety. But like you were saying, like I view myself as a chess piece, someone who could play all over, someone who can, maybe week to week it changes. So, and I embrace that role. It's tough. It was really tough early on as a freshman, as a sophomore at UW. But I got confidence, and shoot, now I can play all over. I know the defense pretty well, and I think my technique is solid anywhere.
Have teams given you any feedback on like where they'd like to play you in the NFL? I'm not sure if you've met with teams yet via Zoom or any of those things, but I'm interested to know if like you've received feedback from your coaches, the people you're training with at Irvine, like, hey, this is your role in the NFL. This is what you need to do. What have you heard in that regard?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think it's pretty cool. Like a lot of teams I've met with, they don't put me in a box. You know what I mean? They don't say, oh, I'm only a nickel. I hate hearing that. I hate hearing, oh, you're only a nickel, man. So if you want to pick a fight with me, say that. But they kind of view me as how I view myself, someone who could play all over. Some people say nickel corner, some people say nickel safety. Man, as long as I'm on the field, I'm not going to be complaining.
And the thing is, like, just a nickel, it's kind of like, slot cornerbacks start in today's NFL, and they're also one of the more valuable positions on the defensive side. I think gone are the days where we're talking about slot corners as this lesser position. I do think it's honestly harder. I've talked to, Richard Sherman in the past, who is kind of known for like staying on one side of the field, working his side of the field, and while other cornerbacks like Darius Slay or Marlon Humphrey will follow guys into the slot and those things. He talks about slot corner being harder. Like, so you're giving guys two-way goes. Like, if you're playing press from the slot, you're working two-way goes all the time, and they have more space to work. So I definitely think that the slander towards just the nickel is a little too much. Talk to me more about, at your time at Washington, playing such a diverse role there. What went into a given game week from a preparation standpoint? How much film were you watching? What were you looking for when you're turning on an opponent's film? How much filmed over yourself are you watching? I'd be interested to know, like, a week of game planning, what it looks like for you.
Dude, I geek out over film. Like, if I took you through my routine, then we'd be on here for another 20 minutes. I mean, usually, like, I start off the week with kind of like a spreadsheet, just kind of analyzing the offense. Starts pretty simple. Names of the best players, name a quarterback, offensive coordinator, where they come from. And then it starts to get more focused, like, strengths and weaknesses of the quarterback. Maybe he rolls out left. Maybe he stares on his receivers. And then I'll kind of like take away a handful of plays from the offense, especially when they get in one specific formation. More often than not, there's going to be like 2 or 3 plays. If you take away, then they're going to be struggling. So I start with that, and then throughout the week, I'm also watching a lot of other stuff. But yeah, I don't want to bore you guys.
You're not boring me, man. I like it. In game, I think with defensive backs specifically, it's kind of common to play this mental game within the game where you're talking a little bit, talking some trash, and trying to work an opponent, specifically because defensive backs, even slot corners, outside corners, will see the same guys over and over, and it largely is a one-on-one matchup a lot of the time. How much are you talking trash? How much are you playing the mental side of it in game?
Man, I don't really talk too much trash unless it's the Apple Cup.
Have to do it for the Apple Cup, dude. They hang the flag on that building in Seattle. I've been to Seattle a handful of times. It's a big deal in Seattle, man. It's everything.
Yeah, I mean, we get after it. But really, I don't talk too much trash. There'll be some times where, like, after a play, I'll make a play and I kind of black out. Like, I don't remember anything. I'll say something and I'm like, whoa. But man, I mean, football isn't just lining up and trying to get 8 yards a play or trying to get a touchdown. I think it's a lot more. There's a dynamic with with your teammates and with the opponent across from you. So much goes on pre-snap, and so much is psychological, really. So I think that when I started focusing on that part of the game, that's when I started to see my level of play increase. And to be honest, I feel like I'm just getting started.
I think the elephant in the room, anytime you talk to a Washington defensive back, is how quickly are you going to mention Jimmy Lake? You know, a guy that has
Yeah.
like legitimately churned out so much talent out of UW over the recent years. Byron Murphy, Marcus Peters, Kevin King. I mean, they're guys that come out of UW that are built different. It's kind of a cliche today, but honestly, these guys come in super developed, super well coached. It's kind of what that reputation I think Iowa used to have, or maybe still has, with like bringing out guys that have a ton of knowledge, very cerebral players. But Jimmy Lake, talk to me about the impact he's had on you.
Man, tremendous. I think that was a big part of what, drew me to Washington. I could have went to a couple other programs. Obviously, being from Oregon, the Ducks were a close contender. But what pulled me from the 503 is just him. And I knew, like, if I go to UW, he's going to develop me the most as a player, and then also, like, as a man. And shoot, like, I mean, he's so good at teaching players, like, concepts, not just, okay, line up and play this technique. It's like, no, he wants to show you the whole picture of the defense. And when you do that, like, then that's when you can play multiple positions because you know how the defense flows together. And, I mean, for whatever reason, like, UW doesn't get a whole lot of attention when it comes to the type of players we put out. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like on the East Coast, not a whole lot of people know about us. Honestly, I couldn't care less. At the end of the day, we're on the field making plays.
How upset was your dad, who I know is in the, like, I think University of Oregon Hall of Fame, when you turned down the Oregon Ducks to go to Washington?
Man, not upset at all.
That's good.
He actually wanted me to go to Washington just because of Coach Lake and because of all the connections that Seattle has to offer. But he still wears his Oregon sweatshirt. I think he wore it today.
Uh-oh.
He came out here. He watched me train out here, and he had the U of O sweatshirt on. So
it'll be an NFL sweatshirt here pretty soon. The other thing I had to ask you about, reading into your background, and I do a lot of the background work for PFF's Draft Guide, one of 8 children, second oldest, I think is what I saw. There has to be some competitive fire born into that. When you are one of 8 kids, it has to be a surreal experience in terms of just the level of competition, how often you guys are, like, playing as kids and growing up together. How much did that fuel kind of the mentality you bring to the field today?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, I'm the second oldest, so really it's just me and my brother going at it. But now it's funny starting to see my younger siblings, like, try and compete with me. The favorite thing my brother loves to say to me is, like, when you were my age, I was faster than you. When you were all this stuff. So it's definitely there. And yeah, I think it's always been there. Our family is, we're big on faith and we're big on football. You know what I mean? So I love it.
That's awesome, man. I really appreciate you setting aside the time to talk to us, and I wish you the best of luck moving forward, man.
Yeah, dog. Appreciate you, man.
Joining the 2-for-1 Drafts podcast is former USC defensive tackle Marlon Tuipulotu. Marlon, great to have you on the pod.
No, thank you guys for having me.
Of course, man. Of course. I heard you're out there in Arizona training with Exos. How's that been so far?
It's been great so far. Great people, just trying to learn.
Who's your workout partner right now? Who are you working with?
I work out with right now is Robert Hainsey. He's my workout partner for the bench, and then squat is just whoever.
Whoever can swing it? Are you just the big dog at the squat? Why is it whoever?
I just random because, like, we're basically kind of like individuals when it comes to, like, lower leg lifts and stuff like that.
What are you and Hainsey lifting on bench right now? What are you repping?
Shoot, Hainsey's doing good. He's like he's high up there in the 30s, and I'm just trying to, in the 20s, like high 20s.
Gotcha. Got a role model in Hainsey. That's awesome. So, I mean, obviously working the bench, working squat, and those different things. Are there any other combine drills that you're prioritizing? I'm sure you're doing a ton of different things, but are there any other drills that you're prioritizing? Like, hey, I got to nail the 3-cone. I got to nail the 40. I'm interested to know if you're setting any goals for specific drills.
I mean, just what we're doing at Exos is we're just trying to get better in our starts and, like, in the 40s and things like that. Like, just trying to focus on my 10-yard split. And then just the 3-cone, and then also working position drills as well.
And what weight did you play at this past season? Are you working towards a new weight? Have you received feedback about playing a different weight? I'm interested to know that.
Yeah, I played around. I was floating between 300, 305 during the season, and right now I'm around like 308 off the Senior Bowl. So just trying to stay in between 300, 310, like around that range. Right.
Very cool. Before we dive into kind of your career at USC, I wanted to turn back the clocks a little bit and look at your recruiting background, also the family. You got some studs in the family, Marlon, which is awesome. But former 4-star recruit, had I think 15 or close to 15 scholarship offers coming out, a lot on the West Coast. What went into that decision to go to USC?
Just being from Cali, being raised in California, in like Hawthorne. USC was my dream school, so just going to USC, like, that felt like the place to be.
Yeah, California, man, I miss it. Like I said, I said this before we jumped on, but I'm from Oakland, California, and now based in Cincinnati here at PFF. I miss California every single day. My dad texted me, and he's like, yeah, it's a little cold here. It's in the 60s. It's like, dude, you don't know what I'm working with here. It's like 15 degrees in Cincinnati. And so also, like, how competitive is the family, the Tuipulotu family? Because obviously your brother, who's a fellow defensive lineman, Tuli, is a fellow defensive lineman at USC. Your cousin, also there at USC, Talanoa Hufanga. And then you have another cousin, former NFL defensive tackle, Philly Moala. I mean, that's just a group of studs. I'm sure the Thanksgiving dinners must be a riot.
No, yeah, especially with my little brother and Talanoa just going to school together this past year and things like that. It could get really competitive whether it's like basketball or video games. Like, we always try to be the best in all those categories.
What video games are you playing? What are you guys going against? Madden, I'm sure?
Right now it's Warzone. So we've been
Fair.
big Warzone lately. So right now, Tuli got the advantage right now. So we're just trying to catch up.
It's always the younger brother with the video games, man. I'm telling you, like, I feel like my younger brother was dominant with video games for sure. But let's go ahead and get into your career at USC. Obviously, played a ton in 2018 and 2019, over 450 snaps played in both those games. And then this past year, talk to me about this past season, because obviously the Pac-12 season was largely canceled, and then it came back because of COVID-19 concerns. You come back. How crazy was this offseason preparing for 2020 for you, and how much did it really impact your performance on the field?
Yeah, so once we found out things were getting canceled, like, me and my little brother and T we were just continuing to do our own workouts just to stay in shape, because you never know, like, if the season was going to happen. And we just continued to just work on our game and things like that. And then once we got to the season, like, we felt like we were ready to just go out there and play ball.
And you were kind of like the dynamic duo, you and Jay Tufele, who's another defensive tackle in this draft class. I think I'm pronouncing that name right, I hope. But then he opts out for the 2020 season and kind of put you in the limelight, put you in this premier role. Talk to me about the difference between playing with him in 2018, 2019, and then obviously not playing with him in 2020.
Right. Basically playing with Jay was a lot of fun, just growing up with him, like, throughout high school recruiting and things like that. I've known Jay for a while, and just like how good of a player he is on the field. Like, you can tell, like, when he wasn't there, but like with us, our mentality was pretty much just to next man up. So once we found out Jay was opting out, like, it was just time for us to just continue to work and build off of it and just continue to win games.
I want to give some USC fans some hope for next season. And I think that the guy, Keaton Slovis, I mean, he's a guy that's highly regarded. I'd love to hear your scouting report on potentially a top 2022 quarterback prospect in Keaton Slovis.
Right. Now, Keaton's a great ball player. I mean, he showed that these past 2 seasons. Like, people didn't know him coming into the 2019 season, but obviously, like, we saw what he could have done, and then just how much of a competitor he is in practice. Like, he's a great football player, like, good teammate and things like that. And I'm excited to see what him and the rest of the guys got going for this coming season.
What kind of guy is Keaton off the field in the locker room? Is he playing Warzone with you guys? I'd love to get a couple stories here. Give me inside Keaton Slovis.
I mean, yeah, Keaton plays Warzone, but I'm mostly with my brothers, like, playing with them. So he has his own group that he plays with. But Keaton's a good guy and a good teammate.
Yeah, the Warzone squads, it's tried and true. You can't break away from those. You also had an opportunity to go down there at the Senior Bowl, go to Mobile, Alabama, and play there, work in the one-on-ones, play in that game. Talk to me about that experience and what you learned from working with the NFL coaches and being around so many talented NFL draft prospects.
Right, exactly. Just going there and just trying to showcase my abilities, and then just trying to show what more I can do on the football field, and then just trying to listen and learn more from NFL coaching staff. So while I was there, I was just trying to learn as much as I could, and then just continue to showcase my talents against, like, the best seniors in this upcoming draft.
Which interior offensive lineman gave you the most fits down there in Mobile?
Mobile, they were all pretty good, but so far it was David Moore, Grambling State, I think. Yeah, he was a good football player.
Yeah, Grambling State, that guy really rose up boards after that performance there at the Senior Bowl. I wanted to get your take on this too. PFF sees one of your biggest strengths in compared to other defensive tackles in this class is your run defense. It's been one of the better, traits for you over the past 3 years. It's also been very consistent. Is that something you take pride in? Do you feel like your run defense is kind of what separates you in this class? I'd be interested to know what you feel of that strength and what other strengths you do have.
No, yeah, for sure. I felt like my run defense, like just being consistent in that regard. Like I felt like I've shown that over these past 3 years, and I'm just trying to continue to get better at that, and then also showcase the other abilities that I haven't quite shown, but I know I can do.
Yeah, I mean, adding to that, I think as a pass rusher, with the NFL being such a passing league, like you have to get, the best interior defensive linemen in the NFL are elite pass rushers, can win off the snap and all those things. What are you doing now to work those pass rush moves, work explosiveness at the snap? I'm interested to know, what coaches are working with, what players are working with to get better as a pass rusher.
Yeah, so we have a great group of D linemen at Exos right now. So we're all just continuing to learn from Coach BT Jordan. I don't know if you've heard of him, but shout out to Coach Jordan. He's just been trying to get us right ever since we got here. So just continuing to learn his techniques, like just trying to get off the ball, like using our hands better, like using certain techniques just for us to become more successful in the pass.
Do you have a go-to pass rush move, one you feel like you're tried and true, and then what's your primary counter off that? I find it interesting talking to defensive linemen about their pass rush plan, what their primary move is, what counters they work off that, and how they develop their plan.
Right. So in college, just pretty much just trying to use my power, just bull rushing and then push pull off of that as well, and then the long arm stab is what I like to use. So those two moves are like my favorite in college.
The bull rush to the push pull is definitely one of the better when you can have that primary and counter, it's one of the most #fun to watch moves that we do have. The other thing I wanted to talk to you about is if you could give any insight on what you do from a game film perspective, studying each week. When you're going into a certain opponent, what are you looking for from that opposing offensive lineman? What tendencies are you looking for on film?
Yeah, so how I break down my tape is first I like try to focus on myself first, just to see like things that I could do better, and then continue to grow off of what I've done well and consistently. And then once I'm done with that, just continue to look at opponents, and then just seeing like what kind of formations they like, where the back is lined up, where the tight ends lined up, just things like that can give me like a slight edge and understanding where the play is going to go and things like that.
And how has that film study kind of changed in the offseason? Are you watching a ton of film on yourself? Are you watching film on NFL guys? What are you looking for right now?
During the offseason, it's more about myself, and then just watching like a couple of NFL guys, and then just trying to get with my coaches in college and seeing what I need to continue to grow on from a player standpoint.
Are there any NFL players that you watch a ton of, or guys that you kind of emulate your game after? If you had to give yourself a player comparison, do you have any of those in mind?
I like watching Geno Atkins and Daron Payne. Just with Daron Payne, just how much of a excellent run stuffer he is, especially at Alabama, just showing how much he can stop the run, and then just showing like the potential as a pass rusher. I feel like that's something I can show off as well. And then just Geno Atkins, just because we have like the same build, I guess, same height, like we're not too tall. And then, yeah, just watching how explosive and quick off the ball he is with Geno Atkins as well.
Explosive, quick, wins with his hands. And I'll say this about Geno Atkins being a Cincinnati guy, effort out of the room. I mean, that guy's got a motor that does not stop. It's a big reason why he's been able to play as well as he has for so long in the NFL. Marlon, this has been fantastic. I really appreciate you jumping on the podcast. And I really wish you the best of luck moving forward.
No, I appreciate it, Austin. Thank you.
Thank you.